What is that?
I don't know, it's someone with a... Hang on, I'm just going to go and check, because if he's doing the f***ing hedges, I'm going to scream. Hang on, I'll be back in a second. He's got a whippersnipper, a hedge trimmer, and a leaf blower.
He's Captain Noise.
Yeah. What a twat.
My name is Maximus Decimus Noisius. No, Maximus Decibel Noisius.
There we go. There it is.
Welcome back to Trouble in Terrorist Town! Wait, no. Welcome to the Wikicast. Hello, I'm Simon.
And I'm Dan.
And that is a leaf blower outside Dan's house. And this is the Wikicast, a podcast where Wikipedia takes us to a random article each week and we talk about what we find. Dan, what are we talking about this week?
This week, Simon, it's satire in the extreme. It's the Department...
The
Department of Trade and Industry, the United Kingdom.
Are you
No, deadly serious.
Oh my god. It's funny you should mention this because I was thinking just last night, I'm rereading A Brief History of Time, and there was a section where Stephen Hawking was saying, talking about entropy, which is a measure of how disordered a system is. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, obviously we don't live in a system of complete disorder or nothing would ever happen. And I was just like...
Well,
given how Brexit is going, it does feel like we're living in a state of complete disorder. We have reached maximum entropy.
It's a royal show, isn't it, really? There's certainly, within the last couple of days of recording, Brexit negotiations, well, the lack thereof, have just been...
The lack of Brexit discussion, yeah.
Been ludicrous. And the Labour MP...
hit me with it.
Okay, well, we'll get on to Brexit later. The Department of Trade and Industry, DTI, was a United Kingdom government department formed on the 19th of October in 1970. It was replaced with the creation of the Department of Business, Enterprise and Regulatory Reform, and the Department for Innovation, Universities and Skills on the 28th of June 2007.
Those two, I wouldn't have said that they sound like the natural successors of
Trade and Industry.
Was it Business, Trade and Industry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But and when was this? Where did you say this was? It was disbanded.
2007, 28th of June, 2007.
Okay, right. So we've both theoretically known the effects of this. This department. So what is interesting about this? Skim the article because I get the impression there's going to be a lot of shit.
Okay, so the DTI had a wide range of responsibilities. Ultimately, the 9 main areas that they were concerned with were company law, trade, business growth, innovation, employment law, regional economic development, energy, science, and consumer law. Needless to say, it was replaced in 2007. In 1983, trade and industry were reunited. So the Department of Energy used to be its own department, but then it was added back into this DTI thing in 1992, which is interesting.
You'd have thought that like energy is one of the arguably the most important industry in that, if the energy industry isn't doing its job, nobody can do their job. So I suppose obviously you have to break down the roles of government in some way, but like that feels like an absolutely natural connection for them to be talking to each other. Hilariously,
after the 2005 general election, excuse me, the DTI was renamed to the Department for Productivity, Energy and Industry, but the name reverted back to the Department of Trade and Industry less than a week later, after widespread derision, including some from the Confederation of British Industry.
You're not going to have a Department of Innovation. That sounds like Orwellian. To be fair, the government is if Orwell were writing reality as a satire, he would be calling the current government the Institute of Innovation. So
and there was also... Okay. So 4 years after the DTI was established, there was the general election in 1974, which followed a Labour Party victory. The department was split into the Department of Trade, the Department of Industry, and the Department of Prices and Consumer Protection.
Oh God!
Jesus, just dry as sin.
Just when I thought it couldn't get any more boring, like, fuck me.
Jesus,
that's the dullest department I have ever heard of in my life. Yeah. Wow. How are we supposed to make this interesting, Dan? Come on, you're an ideas man. Well, how are we supposed to make this topic interesting?
I'm imagining that the way this Department of Trade and Industry was run is something something like what was that Armando Iannucci TV series?
Oh, The Thick of It.
Yeah, I'm imagining it's like that. Just completely an absolute show of just foul-mouthed, horrible people.
As far as I can tell, like, reality is now a spin-off of The Thick of It. Like, they're indistinguishable at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I love how also normally we try and hold off the swearing for at least a while, like until in the episode. And as soon as Brexit has come up as the topic, it's like, oh, this stupid face situation we're in. We've all just gone full exasperated.
So this is quite interesting. So there's a hyperlink in this Wikipedia article that links to the Department of Trade and Industry's website within the National Archives, because obviously this department doesn't exist anymore.
It's like a time capsule.
Yeah, the National Archives. So I'm on the National Archives Welcome to the Department of Trade and Industry website, but this is within the National Archives, and there are 3 links to things that I can kind of look into. The 24th of May 2007, the 23rd of May 2007, and the 23rd of May 2007. So on the 24th of May 2007, the Secretary of State referred the transaction of the so Sky, as in the website, the broadcasting company, bought 17.9% of shares of ITV through this department.
Oh, okay.
Which is really odd.
Yeah, you think that would go against some kind of like trust laws or
because the day before
anti-monopoly legislation.
The day before, the most important, well, the only archived notice that I can see was the Energy White Paper was published. So this department, in terms of its scope, must have been huge. Yeah, Energy White Paper meeting the energy challenge. So they've published this article. So this will be interesting. Let's have a look and see what they in 2007. This was the government's plan. So here we go.
Okay.
Energy is essential in almost every aspect of our lives and for the success of our economy. We face 2 long-term energy challenges: tackling climate change by reducing carbon dioxide emissions both within the UK and abroad, and ensuring secure, clean, affordable energy as we become increasingly dependent on imported fuel. This white paper sets out the government's international and domestic energy strategy to respond to these changing circumstances, address the long-term energy challenges we face, and deliver our 4 energy policy goals. Now, here are their goals: to put ourselves on a path to cutting CO2 emissions by some 60% by about 2050.
Well, that's gone well.
With real progress by 2020.
Actually, hang on. I say that. Let's just quickly assess. Hang on. UK carbon emissions, because I don't think they've gone down, but I'm just going to Google this. UK carbon emissions. Would you look at that? They actually have decreased.
Yeah.
So when was this from? 2007?
Yeah.
UK in 2007 emitted 8.6. Hang on a tick. Wait a cotton picking minute. It emitted 8.68 metric tons per capita. So we're going to have to weigh this against population increase. So that was 8.68 metric tons per capita in 2007. And the last year there's data available is 2014, in which they emitted 6.5 tons. So quite a substantial decrease. So I think on balance that will be a like an overall decrease. And actually Carbon Brief, which is quite a good website for climate change stuff, they have some analysis here saying UK carbon emissions in 2017 fell to levels last seen in 1890.
Wow.
That's actually well done, the UK. We don't actually congratulate ourselves very frequently because we fuck up frequently. But honestly, I think that's pretty good, you know? I'm sure that there will be some overall bad picture to be taken from this. But, okay, that's cool. So on this website, I'll include this in the show notes, guys, if you are interested, which you should be, because it's our future we're talking about. Most of the decrease since 2014 has a huge percentage of the decrease has come from stopping using coal. There's a breakdown of where the reductions have come from by gas, by oil, and by coal. And That's coal is where most of it's come from, and I know for a fact that a lot of it will have come from being replaced with wind and in some cases solar. However, the funding that the UK gets for its wind farms comes from the European Commission. So we're back on Brexit because that money is probably not going to be coming for very much longer. Although possibly we're not leaving the European Union. There is now a glimmer of hope. That I don't know, it does feel like after the European Court of Justice have like ruled that we can come back in, everyone's gone, oh, for God's sake, let's just end this all and go back in. Anyway, starting on Brexit. What are the other objectives? Let's see if they've met. So that's one objective they met.
Put ourselves on a path to cutting CO2 emissions by some 60% by about 2050, with real progress by 2020, to maintain the reliability of energy supplies, to promote competitive markets in the UK and beyond, to ensure that every home is adequately and affordably heated.
That's not worked out with the Tory government, hasn't it?
Yeah. Of the 4 energy policy goals, one has to do with cutting CO2 emissions, and every single other one is about money.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's how you're going to make people care, right?
Yes.
Like, you're gonna have a hard time making people care about energy policy unless somehow it saves them money.
Yeah, it's just interesting that the energy challenge, tackling so the two challenges, the two long-term energy challenges, tackling climate change by reducing CO2 emissions, both within the UK and abroad, and ensuring secure, clean, and affordable energy as we become increasingly. So, of those two challenges, the 4 goals that they have, 1 addresses one and 3 address the other. And really, this is the whole issue, isn't it? Because no one really gives a shit about climate change.
Well, I mean, I feel like the pessimist in me wants to agree, but what we have seen is that actually meaningful action has... I was doubtful when I looked at the data, and actually, like the UK has really quite substantially cut carbon emissions.
I suppose it's how much can you kind of, 60% by 2050. Do you think that's feasible?
Hang on. I'm trying to see what the overall 60% by 2050. So that's by 2050, I'd say that's feasible. I think that if I remember rightly, the EU committed to like a 32% decrease by 2030, and I feel like it's going to be one of these things where the pace of change is only going to increase. So I think that is feasible. I think, to be honest, the UK and Western Europe generally, I think, is going to provide a certain amount of sort of leadership by example when it comes to this stuff, because they have shown to have taken meaningful action. They've committed to future meaningful action, and people actually do, I feel like people do care. There has been a grassroots movement that has been building up over several decades now, where people have been educated from a young age, starting in about the 80s and really the 90s. And those kids, people my age basically, who have now grown up with knowing that this is an issue, are now going into positions where they can do something about it.
Right.
So I feel like that's going to contribute to the accelerating pace of change. And I feel like, the EU generally, the Eurozone, is going to, certainly compared to America at the moment, and Australia, is going to provide something of a showcase of, it can be done. What's interesting is China has actually really committed, gone full into renewable energy, because partly the actual environment is deteriorating in China at an astonishing rate.
Well, there are places in China that you can't are not habitable.
I'm hesitant to absolutely agree, but as I understand it, there are places where air pollution is astonishingly bad. India is actually, I think, worse for air pollution, as I recall. I don't have any data to hand about this. But the other key thing with China and India is that they are so reliant on meltwater from the Himalayas for agriculture and for drinking water, that if Himalayan glaciers continue to retreat at the rate that they currently are, they're not going to have a reliable source of drinking water by the end of the century. So it's in their interest. They know it's in their interest to actually try and do something about this. I think you could also argue that they might see it as a by taking action on it, that they are the world's superpower. They're the ones taking leadership on this, and that's sort of a reason why they're doing it. But China is an interesting one in that the renewable energy network, the people that I went to Berlin with, in their report, they're basically showing how China has invested. It was something like last year China added more renewable energy capacity than the entire world had in 1990 or something like that. Like, they are adding so much solar. It's actually astonishing. So, you know, like, yeah, I do think it is feasible, as long as other parts of the world sort of take note of what Europe and yeah, to be honest, China are doing, and also in the electrification of a lot of Africa. Like, there's an opportunity there to add in an infrastructure from what as these countries come up in development. There is the opportunity to add in a real infrastructure on a renewable energy, rather than making the same mistakes that we made in the West. So yeah, I think it's possible. That's actually really that's given me some good news about how the UK's carbon emissions have fallen. That's actually very welcome news.
And would you have thought
good on us
that we would have got there from the Department of Trade and Industry, which was disbanded in 2007?
Yeah. Oh god! Actually, shall we? Just because the whole debacle is advancing so quickly, do you want to quickly summarise what the latest Brexit debacle is at the time of recording?
No pressure. Okay, so the agreed vote and negotiations have been postponed in Parliament. So Theresa May addressed the House of Commons yesterday, basically saying that due to the division in the House over what's being referred to as the Irish backstop, which has stuff to do with trade regulation when the UK withdraws from the it's quite hard. The single market, the European single market, basically this backstop would ensure that the UK and Northern Ireland wouldn't face trade restrictions, and further, basically, whenever when anything goes across the border. At the moment, the regulations are fairly minimal. They just allow, and facilitate trade. If this backstop wasn't in place, there would be a considerably harder border, which is what the DUP are keen for, right? Which is why this is such an issue.
The backstop is in the event of no agreement being reached when it comes to technical details. Like, and at the moment, if we don't reach an agreement, the Northern Ireland remains in the customs union. Mm-hmm. As I understand it, whereas I think that I believe the DUP don't like that, and well, I mean, that's the real issue. But I mean, effectively, Theresa May proposed a deal which overall nobody wants.
No,
and she knew that.
Well, the issue is it's not so much that nobody wants this deal. It's that if you look at the House of Commons, it's divided between the government and the opposition. Obviously, the opposition aren't keen because they're the opposition. But then also within her own party, there is division because not everyone is keen for this backstop to come through. And Theresa May's government is propped up by the DUP considerably. And they don't want it at all. So
to the tune of £1 billion.
Yeah, you've got the DUP who don't want it. You've got, I think, Boris Johnson. Here we go. There's a thing here. Staunch Brexiteer Boris Johnson said the EU would use the backstop as blackmail to the UK. He says the real problem with the backstop arrangement is it gives power to Brussels and all the other EU states effectively to blackmail us and to get what they want out of the future trade negotiations. It's an awful negotiating position to be in. And then Theresa May addressed the House yesterday saying that she's postponed discussions, hasn't she? And she's now currently in the Netherlands, actually, with the Dutch Prime Minister, talking about Brexit more, trying to rescue this deal. There you go. So she's with the Dutch Prime Minister, Mark... I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Rutte, I guess?
I don't know.
And Angela Merkel, after postponing a Commons vote for the deal. So basically, everything's just still massively up in the air. Then there's been this whole news about who was it who spoke? It was a European Union bigwig, basically said that we can revoke.
It was the European Court of Justice.
Yeah.
That said that we could re-enter the European Union without consulting the other 27 member states.
Yeah, which would effectively undo Article 50.
Yeah, well, it indicated that if we did decide that we wanted to stuff it all in and just rejoin the EU, we could, and there wouldn't be an issue. And I feel like that coming out just before the vote because effectively the deal and the issue of the Irish backstop in particular has meant that the people who want Brexit think that we're not getting enough of a Brexit, and the people who don't want Brexit are saying obviously we're getting too much of a Brexit.
Yeah.
And now the fact that the European Court of Justice has said, you can come back in if you want, the door's open, meant that all those people have said, well, why are we doing this? No one's happy. And so, at the latest state of play is that Theresa May has gone, it, we're not having a vote. We're going to leave it, and then I'm going to fail at a future point. Doubtlessly, the whole situation will change by the time this comes out.
So there were two really interesting articles I read this morning, actually. One about this Labour MP went up and just picked up the
mace.
The mace.
Yeah.
Which is like a big
the
no-no.
parliamentary mace, and everyone was like, miles. It was like a playground.
Yeah. A Labour MP grabs mace. Here we go. MP causes uproar. That's just what we want. So Monday's common debate on Theresa May's decision to call off her Brexit vote ended in high drama as Labour MP seized the ceremonial mace in protest.
And I think the speaker was just like, okay, come on now. Like, we're all getting a bit antsy. Come on now, that's not funny. It sounded like a mother.
The MP who moved it said the symbolic gesture of lifting the mace and removing it is that the will of Parliament to govern is no longer there and has been removed. I felt Parliament had effectively given up its sovereign right to govern properly.
Yeah, God, can we just abruptly put a lid on this, because I feel like I'm going to get a headache if we actually talk about this for any longer.
Yeah. The only other interesting thing.
Does anybody actually want to hear this?
The only other interesting thing that I think is quite cool is there was it's been quite. The actual article itself has been kind of buried amongst other more recent articles, despite the fact that it only happened, I think, last night. It was published last night. But there's been an MP has been speaking about John Bercow, who is the Speaker of the House of Commons. His how impartial he really is over Brexit, because he's made quite a few... So when Theresa May said, oh yeah, we're going to postpone talks because everyone's in disarray, apparently he openly said within the House... he was disappointed in the decision, which is not okay, because the chair's meant to be impartial, and that's massively important for governing proceedings in the House of Commons.
I mean, I feel like he's right to be disappointed, but he shouldn't be expressing.
He really shouldn't be expressing it, because that he carries a lot of power in how proceedings are kind of governed within the House of Commons. But yeah, some MPs been really pissed off with his stance, which was really quite an interesting article.
I just wish we'd elected Ed Miliband. Like, coalition of chaos, or this.
Yeah,
definitely coalition of chaos. Do you remember when the biggest political issue in the country was how Ed Miliband ate a bacon sandwich? That was legit the biggest issue in that election.
It's just...
I just want to go back.
Everything's going mad, isn't it?
Yeah. Speaking of which, should we go mad in another corner?
Yeah, let's do it.
I imagine that you've got some interesting music to talk about in Dan's choral piece of the week.
And this will be my piece of the week. Drum roll, please.
Are we safe? Have we escaped Brexit?
I think so. I think we're all right.
Did you slam the door quickly enough?
I did, yeah.
I don't think it followed us in.
Yeah. So my choral piece of the week. If you cast your mind back to last week, where I was very cheeky and asked for two, one choral piece and then one just normal piece that you should be listening to because it's bloody excellent. It's strictly choral this week, but it's part of a wider work that isn't choral.
Oh.
And it's very exciting because I am, of course, talking about Jacob Collier's new album.
Yes,
Djesse,
featuring
Volume
Vox
1.
8.
Indeed. The first track on this album is Home Is, which is Jacob Collier and a Vulture's 8 collaboration. The entire album is riddled with various different collaborations with incredibly talented musicians. It's got the Metropole Orchestra on there as well, which is the orchestra that he collaborated with when he had his night at the Proms, which is excellent. But I cannot emphasize how great this thing is. When we of the time of last recording, had my speaker arrived?
Yes, you spoke.
It had. Okay, cool. Well, it's been basically playing non-stop, and I sat down in a darkened living room with the Christmas lights on and listened to the entire album in its entirety, and then again I just let it play on a loop and just sat there for a couple of hours. It's brilliant, but this Home Is, it's kind of like a if you've listened to Vulture's 8's album Winter, you'll know that it's got those soundscapes.
Yes, the winter. Yes, yeah. I love those. A similar vibe to that, but it's just, it's masterfully
it's
arranged.
Pretty special.
Like, I mean, the whole album just seems to cement that Jacob Collier is like kind of the preeminent individual talent that seemingly everyone wants to work with. Like the young musical talent that, like, I think before he was kind of a bit on the fringe, and this is like him really entering the spotlight now, like the mainstream. I need to listen to the rest of the album because also this is the first album, right? There's more than one.
Yeah, there'll be 4. So over the course of, I think, this year, this coming year, he'll be releasing each volume. But it's incredibly exciting. I mean, it's just superb. So yes, Home Is Jacob Collier and Vulture's 8 on the Djesse Volume 1. That's Djesse. Give it a listen. It's absolutely incredible.
Thank you for being prompt, Daniel. We often,
that's all right, that's
ramble
fine.
in this podcast. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. Do you think we ramble in this podcast sometimes?
Maybe occasionally. You know,
wow.
I think we're usually pretty good at delivering absolutely essential information 24/7. Yeah.
Well, shall we fix that and go on to Critics Corner? Because oh boy, do I have some stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. Here we go.
So, I have 2 things that I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
I would like to... How much of the Jingle Jam have you been watching?
Not nearly enough as I would have liked.
Yeah, okay. I thought that might be the case. Because the problem is, like, it's every day, which means that you always are in the state of, I can always watch it at some other point. I'll watch it on catch-up. And, like, to be fair, people generally do. But I missed a stream live. And... I deeply regret it because I think it's the funniest stream I've ever watched in my entire life. And I'm, of course, referring to the Ben and Tom play Warhammer Total War completely in character. So, for those of you who don't know, so we mentioned this last week, the Jingle Jam. The Yogscast are a group of gamers, and they play stuff and stream all the time. And one of the pairings that often stream together is Ben and Tom. And they play a variety of things. And every week, their normal game is Warhammer Total War, which I never played, but I love the lore of it. And so I tune in every now and again. And when they play, regardless of who they play as and where they are on the campaign map, there's this guy... Boris Toddbringer, Elector Count of Middenland, aka fucking Toddy, who inevitably declares war on them and, like a heat-seeking missile, tracks them down. Like, it doesn't matter where they are in the world. It could be 10 provinces away, like, they've just scraped out of a really tough battle. Their army's, like, all battered, and then, wait a minute, what's that on the horizon with a full stack army? It's fucking Toddy! And they started out the stream, and it was just Ben there, and I will send you a link, Dan, because me, I've watched the whole stream probably twice now, because it's the funniest thing. I will include a link, dear reader, which you should absolutely check out. But I will get Dan to watch the start of this highlight video. Hang on, well, I'll put it on Facebook for you. Right, that's the Mad Cat one. So this is the highlights. Just watch like the first 30 seconds.
Right, here we go.
We can do some global recruitment.
Where is he? Where is he? Steve, have you seen him? What's going on? Where is he? I heard Kazakh one leg on the prowl. Ben!
Who are you?
It's me! Tommy!
That's incredible. Oh my god, I love this.
It's honestly, you watch. That's just 14 minutes of highlights. For the whole 4-hour stream, Tom stays in absolute character, gets incredibly drunk in full plate armor.
Wow.
He's
a hero.
Yeah, absolutely. He was hoarse because his whole character, Toddy's character, is that he's just a shouting idiot with a vengeance, and like he has this particular hatred for a beastman called Kazakh One Eye.
Right.
And every time he appeared on the map, like, because he was getting so drunk by the end of it, and he was just like, he had a sword with him, and every time he saw the character Kazakh One Eye, he was like getting out of his chair, pulling his sword out, waving it around, smashing into lights. Whenever anyone came in the streaming room, he was like, aha, a dueling partner. Like, waving his sword around. Honestly, it was the funniest stream I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Definitely watch the whole thing.
That does look absolutely superb.
And there was the Toddy drive, where I think they raised about 50 grand in one stream for charity.
Wow.
Yeah, people were just dropping £100 donations everywhere. It was the Toddy
because they're currently sitting on just over 2.5 million.
Yeah, and I don't know. I reckon they'll make 3 million by the end of the month. Like, they were never going to reach the target of last year's one because it was such an exceptional charity drive. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just incredible. So I had to share that one with you. But
absolutely.
But I can't stress enough, guys, that if you're listening to this, you really should watch that video I posted. It's only 14 minutes, but even the first minute is gold on its own. But yeah, so I wanted to review that because I think that just brought me so much joy. And then something which made me nope out, like just I don't think I've ever seen something which made me fear, like secondhand fear more than this, was a Netflix show called Tales by Light. Have you heard of this?
No, I don't think I have.
So it's basically, imagine the Chef's Table, the documentary about a particular chef. It's that, but for photographers.
Right.
And I've only watched the one episode because I only just started watching it yesterday whilst I was having my lunch. But the episode which I watched was about this Australian photographer who specialised in underwater photography. And there was an amazing shoot of him with humpback whales and taking pictures of a calf and its mother, and like how he did that shoot. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like, I quite like to swim with whales.
Are you about to tell me that this has triggered your thalassophobia?
No. Well, I suppose it is thalassophobia, actually, because the second main shoot that they did was of a World War II Japanese biplane which had crashed but was basically completely intact. And he wanted to do a special picture of it, where instead of just doing a normal exposure, he wanted to do a long exposure at night. And in order to do that, like, you leave the shutter open for 3 minutes, but the plane still wouldn't stand out enough from the background, right? So there's this technique which I'd never heard of before, which I think was called painting with light. And what you do is, in a long exposure, you basically go in there in complete darkness and illuminate the bits that you want to show up in the long exposure with a torch. And it's literally like you're painting on the light with a torch.
Right.
Which is really, really cool. But then it showed him doing it, and it's him at the bottom of the ocean. Well, I mean, he's probably, I don't know, like 10, maybe 20 meters down at night, pitch black, just illuminating this wreck with a torch and painting the light on, and around him is utter blackness. And I was like, that can get the fuck out. There's no way I would want to do that. Like, the image of knowing exactly what's in front of you but having this infinity behind you where anything could come out. No, absolutely not.
Wow. I kind of want to see that.
It was, hang on, I'll find the... Oh, here you go. I found the picture. I'll send you the link to the picture. I'll put this in the show notes, guys, along with the Netflix show itself. But the actual end picture, I think, is really, really cool. Hang on. There we go.
Oh, yeah, weird.
Yeah, it's quite an ethereal effect, isn't it?
Yeah. Huh.
But like, yeah, very, very cool end effect, and a very, very. I didn't particularly like the way that the documentary was like put together. It was very American and like Discovery Channel like, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah. I thought that was a bit brash. But it was quite a cool show. Obviously, it looks beautiful because they've got some amazing cinematographer to work on it because they don't want their stuff to look by comparison to the photos. I quite enjoyed it actually. I'm trying to make the most of my Netflix subscription recently, so actually watching stuff, which is I haven't for a while.
I've completely binged. I think I've mentioned this already, but the Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat.
Yeah, you did. I have it on my list, and I assume I got that from you.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. I also watched The Holiday the other day.
The Holiday. So
this is kind of like an American, a more American directed in its outlook. Love Actually, like a Christmas rom-com thing.
Oh, is this the one with is it Ryan Reynolds who's in it?
No, it's Jack Black. The woman who was in Titanic, Cameron Diaz, and Jude Law.
Yes, I know the one now. Yep, I remember. Yeah.
The only reason I watched it because Wheezy Waiter recently put out a video of them trying to find him and his wife China, trying to find the kind of perfect Christmas feel-good film.
Right.
And they concluded that it was that, and I sat and watched it in my pyjamas on my own and had a rip-roaring time. It was really just lovely.
Are you one of these people that thinks that Love Actually is an amazing film?
I like it. I don't think it's an amazing film. I'll happily watch it and be like, it's a kind of like it's a nice feel good thing. But Richard Curtis has a multitude of
sins.
Yes.
Yeah. I just can't overlook the cheese. Basically, I just watching it. It's just so constructed. And
that's what it's meant to be, though, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah. It's for a certain taste. And I said this on the stream the other day when I was playing Kerbal, and I was like, guys, it's not a good film. Some people were getting quite angry. I think a lot of people were like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know. It always comes up every Christmas. It's the one film that people are always just like wanking over. What is your Christmas film? Is it
Home Alone?
Yes, of course it's Oh, that was a thing. I meant to tell you this weeks ago. In Home Alone, this was on the Movie Details subreddit. There's a really, really cool detail that the music that's playing when he meets the old man in the what's it called? In the church. Well, like whenever you see the old man, right?
Oh Night Divine.
No, it's the Dies Irae.
Oh right. Oh, I'm thinking of the other when he's in the church.
Well, no. But when he's in the church, it's the Carol of the Bells.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at hang on, I'll send you this episode has just been me sending you things. If you see the sheet music comparing Dies Irae and Carol of the Bells, they're the same notes but in just a slightly different rhythm.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, so like it's the same character but just perceived in a different way. I thought that was really, really, really cool. Also, so this is from this thread, and apparently John Williams, because obviously John Williams did the score, he uses the Dies Irae in the scene in the first Star Wars where the homestead's being burned down. I never picked up on that, but I trust that is correct. Yeah, I can finally delete that from my Reddit saved. I've been saving that for you on this podcast. I can finally get rid of it.
I like it. I've also just come across. I went to see this link on Facebook and was greeted with a photo from the Facts Facebook page.
Oh yeah,
which has triggered me because it's talking about Baby Driver. Because we were massively disappointed with that film. In Baby Driver 2017, the words "baby" and "driver" appear on the screen. This is a reference to the fact that the movie is called Baby Driver.
That's a great page.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
Another movie details though. I'll see if I can find it and actually send it to you because it's kind of difficult to describe, which makes it perfect for discussion in a podcast. But basically, there's this, at the start of Baby Driver when I nearly called him Augustus Waters. Baby goes and picks up like coffee for all the mobsters. Mm-hmm. Basically, there's a mural. It's all one long take, and there's he goes in and there's a mural behind him, and in the mural there's a heart in the middle which is black, and basically, in this one long take, you see this, the camera pans, and he sees the girl, Lily James's character. And when he turns back in the same take, that heart in the middle of the mural has turned red. Like, to sort of symbolise, I suppose, him actually, falling in love or whatever, some stuff like that. I just sent you another link. I don't know, can somebody keep track of how many links I've sent down this episode?
Lord, it's link central.
It's just a really cool little tiny detail that he absolutely didn't have to do.
Yeah. That is f***ing cool.
That's Edgar Wright for you. We love our boy Edgar. We were a little bit disappointed by this film because the standards were so high, but he's amazing director. Oh, that's a point. I might be going to see, speaking of amazing directors, I might be going to see Mortal Engines tonight. I will have to let you know.
Oh, cool.
What I think, because we've got...
I'm quite curious to see that, actually.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept. Like, I really like the idea, and I know the book is meant to be really, really good, but...
And Hugo Weaving's excellent, so...
In anything he's in, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas, but with Peter Jackson's direction is a bit like... it varies from the very, very best to really quite bad, so we'll have to see where this is on the Jackson scale.
Speaking of Hugo Weaving, have you seen Oranges and Sunshine?
No.
2011 it came out. It's about...
Oranges and Sunshine. Go on, send me a link. I feel left out.
Yeah, here we go. So let me send you the IMDb.
Oranges and Sunshine, 2010. Set in the 1980s Nottingham, social worker Margaret Humphreys holds the British government accountable for child migration schemes and reunites the children involved, now adults living mostly in Australia. Oh, I remember this. I remember this coming out. I didn't watch it.
It's incredibly powerful and based on a true story.
Yeah.
It's really very good. It's a similar kind of thing with Philomena, with Steve Coogan and Dame Judi Dench.
Yeah, I still need to watch that.
That's what we'll also watch, but that's really good.
Is there like a does IMDb have like a watch later list? Because how like Goodreads you can have a want to read list. Like, is there a site that does that for movies? Does IMDb do that?
Yeah, so where near the title there's a little plus bookmark thing, and you can click it to add it to your watch list.
Oh, I never knew that. Oh well, I need to populate this. Good grief.
Yeah. It's well worth it. It's really very, very good film.
Yeah, well, I shall have to add this to my list. I said that went a little bit Welsh then.
Yeah. I'll add it to my list.
Add it to my list. Taste my axe, it's the return of Welsh Gimli.
I've got the eyes of a fox and the ears of a fox. I'm a fox.
Top lad.
So we find ourselves in Patreon corner. This is the time of the podcast we'd like to say a massive thank you to our top lad subscribers specifically. This if you're new to the podcast and you don't really know what's going on, Simon and I we've created a Patreon for the podcast to basically first and foremost to allow the kind of what we do to become self-sufficient. So the kind of the first pledges that we were given, which is terribly generous, allowed us to pay for hosting for this podcast. We then also give a monthly donation to Wikipedia each month, because the podcast, kind of contrary to popular belief, actually does rely on Wikipedia quite a lot. And then we also use this money to kind of...
As do we all.
Well, yes, very true. We used the money to when we did merch many many moons ago, and I think... Hang on. Oh God, I think I might have forgotten to. Yeah, Simon, we need to raise a glass.
Why?
It's the 50th episode.
Oh, good God!
We've done 50 of these. This is our 50th.
Oh God, it's our golden anniversary.
Yeah, this is our bicentennial podcast.
How exciting. Bicentennial fabulous podcast.
I'm very tempted to pour myself a nice whiskey because I now have a very nice bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, you posted me a picture as well.
Of my father. Yeah, guys, round of applause. We've made it.
You made it.
50 episodes, my God. What a massively underwhelming way to hold.
We only realised halfway through.
Yeah. I think I just suddenly remembered. Yeah, wow. 50 episodes. But the only reason we've got to this 50th episode is thanks to our amazing readers, those who just listen to the podcast each week, and those who find it in their hearts to support the podcast financially. Without your help, this wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, we would have finished ages ago, like so long ago.
we've been able to do some amazing things on this kind of journey of starting the podcast with just an idea of being like, oh yeah, we get along quite well, let's just talk at each other. We've gone from there to having custom jingles made for us by incredibly gifted readers. We've had guests, we've done merch, we've done some incredible things.
I think that we really should bring forward our plans for the John Rutter Memorial Home for Injured Swans. I feel like we need to start putting this money to some good use, and I feel like Memorial Home for Injured Swans merch is what the people want, Dan.
And it can be the 50th fun run. It can be like we need to have something on this show. Okay, right. I'm not doing anything for the rest of the day, with the exception of learning a really quite complicated anthem for this evening. But I've got plenty of time, so that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to get this shirt done today.
Yes, send me some designs. We can have a look. Oh, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we should actually thank the people who support us.
We should
on patreon.com/the Wikicast.
So without further ado, I'd like to thank Ben Dent, Ben McMurtry and Billy Toulson,
Bryce D. Wilkins, Choco Cat and Connor Levers.
Got the one, the only Dan Hanvey, Davy Schramm Vontabell and Elliot Conway,
Eric Davis, Habiba Amjad, Henry Brewster,
Isabel Ostrovsky, Jay Wright, John Mannion,
Geordie Eschendahl, Kyle Much, Lachlan Woods,
Lewis Watson, Maggie and Marut Vakira Punyawat,
Matt Maguire, Fee Gascoigne, Rory Healy,
Moustache Man, Simon Torseth, Tapio Kirkinen.
Dan didn't fall for your gamut this time, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm on it.
And Whitney Fairies and wonderful Stephen. Thank you
so much.
And all for your support. You, as we say, you make this show possible. We've only got to this point and put this much dubious content out into the world because of you. It's all your fault. And also, of course, the people who support us with $1 a month on Team Dog and Team Cat, which is the same as it ever was. Rivers going underground once in a lifetime.
34 to 28.
Yeah, 34 to 28. Come on, guys. If you would like to support the show and you have $1 a month going spare, and you would like to spend that on us rather than say on a can of fizzy pop, then you can do so at patreon.com/the Wikicast, and we would much appreciate it. As with the cats. Top lad. And now we find ourselves in Crisis Corner. And what we did last week was ask you for your responses to our anonymous reader who is in crisis, so the affairs of the heart. None of you did, so we're going to give our own responses to this. I think we will probably
change. It's a busy time of year, Simon. It's a busy time of year.
It's a very busy time of year, and I think we're probably going to change the way we do this corner. So we'll do it the way we did it before, where we read out a crisis and respond to it in the same episode. Just because, if people aren't responding, then there's no point in trying to do it the way we were. So we'll do it the way we used to do it, which was just as good, I think. So to remind you, Daniel, Anonymous wrote in and basically said that their girlfriend, they met their girlfriend at university in Iceland. Neither of them were from Iceland. And they kind of were very happy together. They then moved to Vienna after university a couple of months ago and Anonymous found it very, very difficult to get a job. And basically, last week, Anonymous's partner said, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go home. I'm not willing to put any more effort into this relationship. I still love you. I think you're handsome, but I'm not sexually attracted to you anymore. And Anonymous doesn't know what to do. Anonymous doesn't want to go back to the family in his country and just doesn't really know what to do. What's your take on this, Dan? What do you think Anonymous should do?
Well, it's super tough, isn't it? Because you don't want to hurt people, but naturally, when you've got a kind of a situation like this, which is so heavily emotionally kind of swayed, it's very easy to feel hurt. I think the most important thing is both for Anonymous and Anonymous's partner, being true to yourself no matter what is the most important thing. If that involves having a very uncomfortable conversation, which by the sounds of which this is what's happened, your girlfriend's had a pretty unpleasant chat. I think the most important thing to do is not necessarily try. If you can understand it, then amazing. If you can't understand it, then accept and support the decision as much as you can. I think that reacting negatively while you may be feeling rubbish, that's completely fine. But I think it must have been a really hard conversation to have with this other person. And like they said, you know, she still loves you, thinks you're really handsome, but the relationship isn't working. Then that's what will be. You know, you also deserve someone who loves you, thinks you're handsome, and wants the relationship to work. And if that relationship's not working from one side, then that's a time. I think every relationship reaches a point where you reach kind of like a tipping of scales, if you like, to see whether it's going to really click into something long term and lasting, or maybe you think that, well, are we really meant to be together? I've actually, like, in the last 3 weeks gone through exactly the same situation, which is probably why I can kind of sympathise quite a bit. But the most important thing is not to try and sugarcoat anything, and not to try and kind of feel too cut up. Things will hurt, but they do get better every single day. Is easier. And you know, in the case of me, I ended a relationship, but we're still really good friends, and we both just had a chat and said, you know what, actually, this has been really nice, and we still get along super well, and we're still super close, but maybe a relationship, a kind of long-term thing, isn't right for us as to and kind of where we are, and how we feel about each other. It's not a pleasant conversation, but these conversations have to happen. You've got to be honest with your partner and yourself, and that's the most important thing.
I mean, I too have been in exactly the situation. Well, no, I haven't been living in Vienna and have my partner say this. But I've been in exactly the situation of the partner saying almost exactly that, actually, saying, I don't want to put any more effort into this relationship. I don't find you sexually attractive anymore. And yeah, so that was out of the blue for me. And what I did was pine after them for a long time. Like, I actively tried to make them change their mind for probably about 3 months, and then pined after them for about a year after that. And I deeply regret doing that, because it was such a waste of my energy. It was such a period of my life that I'm just like, I'm not getting anything out of that. Like, it was a terrible, terrible time for me. It was just wasted. So my advice from experience in terms of the relationship is to basically, as Dan says, it really, really sucks. But I think you basically just have to accept that is where your girlfriend has come from. That's how they're feeling, and it's valid for them to feel that way. They are, if that's the way they feel, they can't help that. And it's not a reflection on you. It takes two to tango in a relationship, and it's not a problem with you. It was a problem with the relationship, which is why the relationship didn't work. So, I think, hard as it is, you've kind of got to accept that, but distance yourself from that blame. I mean, she is still saying, I think you're really handsome, which is a plus.
And he still loves you too. So, like, there's a caring there. So there's no reason why, much like the situation I'm in now, you can't stay close and stay really good friends like you probably assumedly were before you were in a relationship, Although, that's something that's really lovely.
To offer the counterpoint, I'd say that I couldn't do that with my partner who said that to me. I just had to. The only way that I found I was capable of getting over it was to distance myself completely.
Absolutely, these things take time. I'm not saying like you have to, you have the conversation and then go, all right, well, everything's hunky dory, let's go and chill out for a bit. You have to take some time away, and that's what I did. The most, I think, what's if you're trying to find a positive spin on this, which is obviously really hard, because Anonymous has said, I feel more aimless and lost than ever before, and I don't know what's next. It's completely okay to feel that. What you're feeling is entirely valid, and I think kind of natural. As I've said, every day does get easier, and with each day comes more clarity. But what's coming up now is a really, really good opportunity for you just to invest a lot of time in yourself. So with these feelings of aimlessness and being lost, you can just focus on you as a person. You don't have to worry about another person who you might be in a relationship with. You can really have kind of a more inward look and look at where you are in life and where you want to be, what you want to do. even if it's just a case of just being for a bit. You know, it's come at a really awful time of year, but it's also come at quite a nice time of year too, because everyone's just that little bit more kind of cheerful and friendly, and there's more things going on around you in terms of kind of community stuff. It might be a really nice time just to use this kind of lead up into Christmas and going into the new year, just looking at what's going on with you, and kind of getting ready for an exciting new year ahead. You know, it's naturally will take time. I'm not saying that, you know, every cloud's got a silver lining and you're going to be right as rain. I also don't want to sound like I'm belittling how bad you feel, because I understand and know how just awful this feeling is. Yeah. But it does get better.
I feel like basically we are offering the same advice in some ways, but in terms of how to deal with the relationship, you know, it's you basically do whatever, you know, you need to do. Let's focus on what should Anonymous be doing not in terms of relationship, but in terms of where they're living. So they're currently in Vienna, but found it very difficult to get a job. What do you think is the right course of action? Because they're living at a friend's apartment, which is like very cheap and in like a very central location. Not sure if they're still allowed to live there, because it was like a mutual friend of them and their girlfriend, I think. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, what's your take?
Start maybe looking for some expat groups and seeing if there's something that can alleviate that feeling of kind of isolation. Obviously, immersing yourself in a different culture is a big, quite scary thing to do, especially when there's a language barrier. So maybe it would be nice to see if you can find some groups that you don't have to worry about any kind of language barriers, or there's just something that's a little bit more familiar. And maybe use that as a way to see whether there's other places that you could be staying, or jobs that may be coming up that may be more suited to you if you've been struggling to find others. I think this might also be a good time to see whether we have listeners in Vienna, to see if they can send an email in saying with any kind of further kind of knowledge of job seeking and or good places to go. Yeah. You know, things like
Stranger
that.
Things have happened in this podcast before.
Absolutely. We do know that in terms of our readership, we can make some pretty amazing things happen.
I mean, I'd argue. I mean, do you need to stay in Vienna? Like, Anonymous has said, it was like a beautiful city, but it's been difficult to find a job, and you don't want to go to back to your home country. I'd say that this is, you know, again, not seeking to belittle what you're feeling, because from personal experience, I know that it fucking sucks. But you could view this as an opportunity to say, look, yeah, where do I want to go? What do I want to do with my life? You know, you've got your degree. You are, you know, clearly comfortable with traveling if you're in Vienna. You are a handsome man. You know, I also could see from your portrait on our email that you are clearly a handsome man. You've got the world as your oyster at this point. I definitely sounded quite West Country when I said that. I question, what is it that you'd like to do? You know, maybe you don't even have to be restricted to Europe. Maybe restricted to Europe if you want to. And yeah, say, you know, don't necessarily go for location. Go for what job do I want to do? Like, what sector do I want to work in? And then say, right, where do I want to do that? I feel like you kind of got to go, just at this point, get your dick out and just go for it, you know? Yeah. Just like go... Just
seize the bull by the horns. Carpe diem.
The bulls by the horns, yes. All we can say as well is best of luck to you, because this isn't a great situation to be Anonymous. I very, very much feel for you. And both Dan and I have been in the same situation, so we understand. I hope everything turns out well. Do send in a follow-up when things turn around. Send us in a follow-up email, and we'd love to hear from you. But I hope that was of some use, at least. Even if it was just people saying that they understand how you feel, because we do.
And we're at the end, and that means it's a last little foray into Correspondence Corner. We have, and I'm already triggered here, I've started sweating profusely. We have an email here from Grace, regular reader of the podcast. She's emailed in regards to Fantastic Beasts. Her subject line is titled, aptly, Crimes of Fantastic Beasts. So without further ado, here's Grace's thoughts. Hi guys, I completely agree with Dan. Well, thank God for that. I wasn't going to see Crimes of Grindelwald at first, but ended up going with my sister. I enjoyed some parts of the film, but was ultimately annoyed with it. I hate that they changed so much of the canon, and it felt like a lot of things happened in the film, but at the same time, nothing really happened. That's very true. There wasn't any real plot, and every obstacle that came up was resolved quickly with a magical creature. I was annoyed at how much CGI and special effects were used. It felt overdone and made some scenes almost impossible to look at and keep up with. Again, I would agree with that too. I think it could have been a really good film. I had focused on one plot line and followed that, like Simon suggested climate change or focusing on the relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Thank you for providing a space to vent about this crap film. Best, Grace, age 24.5. P.S. Here's a picture of my sister's bird named Dobby to cheer you up. That is a lovely, lovely bird.
Oh, look at the bird. Oh, look at that's a good bird.
The little bird.
I need my bird. Has your opinion changed on the film at all? Has it mellowed since? No, I'm just thinking about
absolutely
Iron Man
not. Not at all. I'd say I've probably had maybe 7 messages on Facebook from various people who either saw my post or just asking whether I've seen it. Asking to meet up for coffee so we can vent about this film. I did a little bit of reading about it the other day, and apparently J.K. Rowling, when speaking to journalists, was promising that Fantastic Beasts 3 would answer questions, which is a really awful title to an article, and she must be feeling just quite stressed out if the first thing they have to say is like, no, you'll get your answers in number 3. My feelings haven't changed. I'm really disappointed with it. I'm very hurt. I'm currently listening, though, to Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, because, as we know, I listen to all the books on a constant repeat through the year.
Have you ever considered listening to anything other than Harry Potter?
But it's Christmas time. It's nice. I was listening to... what was it? Hang on, here we go. I'll go through my audiobook library. Stephen Fry narrating Sherlock Holmes. That's been pretty great. Alan Bennett narrating Winnie the Pooh and The Wind in the Willows. That's also pretty good.
That'd be nice.
Oh, yeah, I got Roy Dotrice narrating Game of Thrones. So I've got the first one of that I've been listening to as well, which is quite good. But I've got some books that I need to be cracking on with reading because I have had my my dissertation approval. My dissertation has been approved. I don't know if I mentioned that last week. I don't think I had.
Oh, no, you didn't mention that. Oh,
no, because I was going on later to do it, wasn't I? That's right. Yeah, yes, so it's all been approved, which is a massive relief. Not only was it approved, the professor who I was talking to about seemed really, really interested. And basically, every time I'd spoken about it before, the general consensus has been, oh, that's quite niche and quite a kind of a narrow field of view, which I don't think is strictly true. I just think that they don't understand what I'm trying to do. Whereas when I spoke to one of the professors at uni in this meeting I had where I kind of gave my pitch and showed him my form, he kind of stayed quiet for a while as I spoke and then slowly turned around and said, I bloody love this idea. So I'm really, really chuffed.
Yeah, well done.
I can't wait to... and he's given me some really, really interesting reading to already crack on with, so I think over this Christmas period, I'm going to be delving deep into dissertation reading, and then next term I start my script writing module, which
I am
really,
really interested to see what you make of that. Yeah.
But yes, I've got some dissertation stuff to be reading. Should be very cool. Tell you what, I won't be reading any more fucking reviews of Crimes of Grindelwald. Tell you that for free. God,
the people who have been getting on me about The Name of the Wind on YouTube, Jesus. Like, that video has now got that video's got 600 likes and 100 dislikes now or something. It's people who just don't seem to understand that art is subjective. People be like, this is a bad review because it doesn't agree with my opinion. You're wrong. And it's like, no, I just don't like the thing that you like. Also, no one has made a single point about how, Quoth is really flawed because he's really prideful. That doesn't matter if it doesn't change the story. There's not a single story beat that's been changed by any of Quoth's flaws. The only bad things that happen to him is circumstance or caused by other people. His flaw, which is definitely there, of course he's a flawed character, he's an arrogant asshole, but it doesn't change the story. It really annoys me that people don't get that. F off. Just repeating things that other people have said, which also isn't relevant, doesn't make you smart. I don't like the thing that you like. Stop trying to make me like it. What I'm trying to say is I actually really like Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, and I think the time...
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, just before we wrap up, over this Christmas period, we have the remake, if you like, of Watership Down is coming up over Christmas, which is very exciting. I don't know how I feel about the animation style, because it looks like something... All the comments are like, I can't wait to play this on my PlayStation 1.
It does look like
it looks a little bit jank. Yeah. But I think you've really got to treat it almost like a radio play. Because it's really about the actual kind of like performances of the actors, rather than what you see.
Yeah,
but I love that film. You know, my dog is named after one of the characters, for God's sake. So, and then we also have the BBC's adaptation of Les Mis.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, the BBC are doing it. So they're adapting the book, not the musical. But it's going to be a 6-part, probably like hour and a bit long episode adaptation, and it looks absolutely superb.
Bloody hell! Wow, I had no idea about that.
Hang on, I'll send you the trailer. Everything over this Christmas period is going to be great. I'm not going home at all.
Oh, really?
So I'm going to be stuck in Exeter, which means I'll be... Well, not stuck. Sounds like I resent it. I really like it down here. But I've already got some really cool Christmas plans happening. And all the services and things. I've got a midnight mass to sing at as well, which is all pretty cool.
Another link.
So yeah, it's going to be a busy time. And I get to see you on Friday for your big day.
Yeah, graduation,
which is very exciting.
We're gonna go for drinks afterwards. It's gonna be awesome. I did such a Hail Mary on that Facebook event. I was like, everyone gets an invite. F it. Everybody who I've ever sung with, pretty much.
Yeah.
Do you live in Newcastle? Don't care. Come to Exeter. I was like, if some of these people come, I'd be so impressed. But that's a shame that you're not leaving. But there are worse places to spend Christmas.
Absolutely. Well, other than my family in Oxfordshire, I have a family down here. Yeah. The wider musical, choral, friend, uni community.
It is. And it is a family.
There's going to be loads of stuff
That's the thing. It's the family we choose.
It really is.
I'm so glad that I get to graduate and actually spend some time with my chosen family, because that's how I feel about it. I love you. Oh, God, I'm getting all emotional. Right, should we end the episode?
Oh, here we go. Yes, I think we should.
It's me! Tony! Kazakh One Eye's on the loose! He stole my eye!
I do really need to watch that.
My neighbours are going to love me. So, Daniel, what have we learned today?
Well, Simon, we learnt about the Department of Trade and Industry, the DTI, if you will, the government department formed on the 19th of October that was later replaced in the 20th of June 2007.
DTI, down to innovate.
Mm-hmm. The weird kind of pseudo website that we found on the National Archives domain, which was super cool, talking about climate change and various other things. We had quite a long, depressing talk about Brexit.
Yes. Trigger.
Which was I had my choral piece of the week, which is the what was it, like home or home is
yes.
Yeah, Home is from Djesse, Djesse Volume 1 by Jacob Collier and his collaboration with Watchers 8, which was superb. And then we forayed into critics.
Yep, I had a bit of a rant about Toddy, Toddy, and about Tales by Light and the painting by light, which can absolutely not doing that. Then we had the Patreon corner.
Yes, absolutely. And our crisis and correspondence.
I really hope Anonymous is doing okay.
Grace just reaffirming the fact that she's a good listener by agreeing with me.
Yes. Well done, listeners. Well done for just agreeing with our opinions. Not questioning them, but just agreeing. Well done. That's how we like our audience. Yeah. Nice and placid.
Well, that's what opinions are for.
They're meant to be the same as the people you follow.
Absolutely. Name of the wind. Full circle. Oh, God.
That's all for this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice. You can like us on Facebook, and if you'd like to see our faces, check out our YouTube channels, Spongy and Electric.
Reviews of Jacob Collier's new album, Djesse, your favourite Christmas films to watch at this time of year, and other thoughts on the show can be sent to us at spongyelectric@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Join us again for another tumble down the wiki rabbit hole.
And we'll see you next time.